Mr. Shi?
Here.
Mrs. Barone?
Here.
Mrs. Ward?
Here.
Mrs. Madiker?
Here.
Mr. Derico?
Here.
Mrs. Peng?
Here.
Mr. Brescher?
Here.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Here.
Mrs. Patel?
Here.
All present.
Opening statement. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Edison Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Board of Education administrative offices. Copies of these notices were sent to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger on January 8th, 24th, and August 28th, 2018. The public may participate at regular meetings in accordance with the bylaws and the applicable state regulations. So first up, we have the, just wait for Teresa to come back. First up, we'll have the approval of the minutes, September 24th minutes, and the board secretary report. So just wait for a minute. First up, we'll have the approval of the September 24th meeting minutes, and then also the approval of board secretary's report. So just wait for a minute for Teresa to come back. Okay, can I have a motion for that? Minutes and board secretary report. Okay, Mr. Brescher, Mr. Moore.
Mrs. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mr. Derico?
Abstain on the minutes of September 24th, yes on the board secretary's report.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
All except I was not here for the 24th meeting.
Okay. Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
So carried.
So next up, public comments on resolutions only. Resolutions only. Anyone has any comments on the resolutions? See none? Let's see. Can I have a motion for the personnel, the labor relations portion of the personnel resolution? Can I have a motion on that, just that item only? Yes, Ralph and Val.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
What do I say? Yes, no, or maybe?
Mrs. Brescher? Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng? Mr. Derico?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
All yes.
So next up, we have the approval for the administration portion of the agenda, which is the approval of the interim superintendent contract, the policy revision, the American Education Week proclamation, and we're also bundling the field trips, professional development, and pupil services of district placement, and finance resolutions. Everything else in one shot. Administration, curriculum instructions, pupil services, and finance. Do I have a motion for that? Okay, Mr. Derico, Mrs. Maroney.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
I actually have a question on the interim superintendent contract for our attorney. Am I permitted to vote on this, or should I abstain? I have a son who works as an employee in the district.
Your son is an employee of the district? You should abstain.
That's what I thought. Okay. So I probably shouldn't have been voting all along on the superintendent's issues.
So, Mr. DeStefano, you were abstaining on that one?
I will
What about the
say
rest of
yes
the
to
resolution?
everything else, abstain on the contract.
Okay. Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Ms. Derico?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
So carried.
All right, next up, we have two committee reports. Okay, both of them. Mr. Brescia, Finance Facility.
Jerry, you want to do the next one?
So you'll do the transportation? Yeah, go ahead.
Wait, I have to dig it out here.
All right, that's fine.
Let's see what- You got it?
There you go. Transportation.
All right, we'll do transportation.
Yeah, transportation, okay.
The Transportation Committee met on 9/27/2018 at 10:15 at the Ed Center. In attendance was Richard Brescher, Shivi Prasad Madagaskar, Falguni Patel, Teresa Ward, Daniel Michaud, John Griffith, Cheryl Roxlove, Lisa Errico, Jim Burke, Yvonne Rodanovic, Paul Saxton, and Richard Pepe. The committee discussed the current subscription busing policy and whether modifications to the policy were warranted. The committee also discussed the current subscription busing fee of $500 per student and the fact that the cost of the routes exceed the parental fees. Therefore, because the policy dictates that the subscription busing must be self-sustaining, the board will have to recommend an increase in subscription busing fees for the 2019-2020 school year. The committee did discuss the difficulties that parents have reaching the transportation department in questions and concerns during the first few weeks of school. Due to the number of parents that come to the transportation office during that time and the staff handling their issues, the staff are unable to answer the phone calls. The committee recommended that the transportation department be provided additional help during the busy time. The committee also discussed the implementation of the VersaTrans transportation routing software. The district's IT department will be asked to assist in the conversion from the current TRIP software. Once fully implemented, the VersaTrans software would interface with the district's students' records software, Genesis, and would also help speed up the bus assignments for the students. The committee discussed alternate ways of processing the distribution of the bus passes, and the meeting was adjourned at 11:50 a.m.
So I just have a quick question. The new VersaTrans software, what is our targeted date of implementation as for the next school year?
Yes. It's, I mean, the system looks like it should work out better for us and help us. It'll align with some of the other software that we use, so that hopefully with Genesis, the two will be able to talk to each other.
Thank you. And for the subscription busing fee of $500, do we have a intended target number for the next school year, or we're still discussing it?
We're still talking about
Okay.
that. Dan knows what we have now, or what we've gotten, but we've had issues with some of the contracts this year where they can't seem to cover them for the cost that they agreed to initially. So we believe that cost is going to rise next year.
So this is within the radius of the 2 and 2.5 mile subscription, right?
Correct. This will be inside the regular radius.
Okay, thank you.
I'll do the Finance and Facilities.
Yes, please.
Finance and Facilities Committee met on 10/11/18 at 1 p.m. at the Education Center. In attendance was Richard Brescher, Beth Maroney, Teresa Ward, Paul DeStefano, Dan Michaud, Paul Saxton, Rich Pepe, Mark Cataldi, and Ken Taylor. The committee discussed the $100,000 wellness allocation that is being provided by the district's new healthcare provider, Cigna. The discussion centered around the different options that Cigna offers for the use of wellness funds. The options include subsidizing employee gym memberships, health fairs, and their general wellness activities. The committee also discussed the preliminary findings from the performance audit. And although the findings are not major, with a district as large as Edison, there is a need to address the purchasing function recommended in the addition of a purchasing agent. The committee also reviewed the procedures and timelines that were provided by SSP Architects, who are preparing the district's long-range facilities master plan. SSP Architects is visiting every district location, reviewing school operations, and discussing building needs with each principal. Tom Renzi, the district's roofing architect, provided an updated roofing replacement schedule and estimated cost. He recommends that 4 schools have roof sections replacements scheduled for next summer. He is currently preparing the bid specifications for us. The committee discussed the possibility of air conditioning parts of the high schools. The discussion centered around what rooms to air condition and the funding source. The committee also discussed the pending shared service agreement with the township for the hiring of Class 3 police officers. The terms of the contract is still being discussed. And the meeting was adjourned at 3:17 p.m.
I had a couple of questions. Can I?
Yes.
So who did the performance audit?
I forgot the name of the company. Who?
The auditing firm's name is Wiss & Company.
Oh, Wes.
W-I-S-S, Wiss & Company.
Wilson Company, okay. And the other question I have is, like, what were some of the key findings?
They went through quite a number of records, and they found a few instances where somebody didn't sign a certification sheet. They didn't have a backup, a second quote attached to the POs, things like that. I mean, not on a large scale, but when you go through 200 or 300 POs, you're going to find a couple of things where that might have fell through the cracks. That's why they're recommending we get a purchasing agent to kind of oversee the purchasing function of the board.
Yeah, my understanding is this is preliminary findings. These are still ongoing, right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, we asked for their backup so we can get into it just to make sure that everything's been taken care of, but I mean, purchasing agent, the Board of Education doesn't have a purchasing agent, and our budget on our vendors is probably half the cost of what the township's is, and I think the township has a 3-person purchasing department. So I'd highly recommend that we do this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. So we're moving along. The announcement of the upcoming meetings. So we have a caucus meeting on November 14th at 7 p.m. in the Education Center. And the next public meeting is Monday, November 19th at JP Stevens. All right, so board member, open discussions. Yes, Mrs. Maloney.
Good evening. This morning, I had the opportunity to attend one of the saddest events I've ever gone to in my life, the funeral of Mr. Tyrone Harrison, the vice principal at New Brunswick High School. My family had a very personal relationship with the Harrisons in that my dad coached the older son, Raymond, in football in Highland Park. The Harrisons are an old Highland Park family, and many of you know that I'm from Highland Park as well. The thing that was so impressive about this funeral was the passion with which people spoke about Mr. Harrison and what he meant to New Brunswick High School. So first of all, my condolences, and I hope the rest of the board, to New Brunswick for its very, very significant loss in Mr. Harrison, a great role model. The other thing is that Tyrone unfortunately died. I'm sure many of you heard this story on television. He died here in Edison on Stelton Road when some drag racers hit him. He was walking to his brother's house from the train station in Edison. And I do want to acknowledge that the pastor there today thanked the police for catching the perpetrators of this terrible tragedy. So thoughts and prayers go out to the Harrisons and to the children of New Brunswick community who are really suffering the loss of this tremendous individual. Thank you.
Any other board member comments? Yes, Mr. Anko.
Thank you, Mr. Shi. A couple things. Thank you, Mr. Rivera, for getting this contract finally off of the county superintendent's desk, and we finally have an interim starting tomorrow, I guess is the official date.
Correct.
So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Dan, for getting some extra busing for our after-school programs, our sports programs. I think we have Delaware Valley we're going to contract with.
Yep.
And I believe there's 7 buses that we could use of theirs, roughly. 9. It's getting better. All right, so thank you there. I'd like to thank Margaret Cantali for all the fine work she's done over the last few months while we were waiting for the contract to get done. She works very well. She was doing 2 jobs. I don't know how she did it, but she did a great job doing both of them. So thank you, Margaret. And finally, I'm still a little disappointed. Not a little disappointed, very disappointed. We don't have our Class 3 officers in the buildings yet, and hopefully we will have that resolved like tomorrow. I don't know where the blame lies or what is going on with the contract, but hopefully we get this resolved and give the public what we promised them in putting Class 3 officers in the building, especially with Election Day coming up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other board member comments? Yes, Sherry?
I just wanted to bring up something that I've been hearing from a lot of people recently, and this, pertains to curriculum. And I know that we have decided to do a PSAT 8x9 test in December. And there are some things that I heard, which make some sense, because a lot of parents have been coming to me and asking about, whether the course would have already been covered in class when we would be, when the test is taken, would all that course be covered, and would the kids at the lower levels of math be at a disadvantage? So I'm just requesting if this year we could do this as a pilot and not go full on and try to use it for any type of decision making, just as a pilot, and to see how kids are doing it, whether this is a good way to move forward or not. Yeah, that's all.
All right. Any other board member comments?
Yeah, I just want to add,
Yes.
I think that PSAT thing was initially introduced to replace the iReady, because we get rid of iReady test in the grouping procedure. So I was just wondering, I need to ask that, what's going to happen to, because iReady test takes 25% of that regrouping procedure. So if we get rid of it, what are we going to use to replace the iReady? That's just something that I think we need to discuss.
The reason why I brought this up was because I was hearing that a lot of parents have already put their kids in preparation classes, which are costing like thousands of dollars, and I feel like there are some kids who are not even aware that we are going to be having this test, so it puts a lot of kids at a disadvantage, and especially kids, the kids who are at advanced levels will obviously do much better than the kids who are not at advanced level. And unless there is a separate scaling criteria, because the playing field should be level, and nobody should have an advantage just because they had more information or more dollars in their pocket. So, and also it's a very quick period where we've not really informed people that another alternative would be, if we don't do it as a pilot, maybe we can have the test at a later date. I don't know if that's possible, if we could do it in March, and make sure that everybody's informed, everybody knows, and we also make sure that whatever this test is, we are actually covering the material, and that nobody is at an advantage or at a disadvantage. The playing field should be level for everyone.
Any other comments?
That's all.
All right, so my understanding, the PSAT has been going on for quite some time. The district has been paying for that,
Sorry?
So the PSAT has been going on for quite some time.
No, it's just, this is for the first time we are introducing it.
I thought we've been offering that to
the
Oh, no,
addition.
this is different. This is PSAT 8 by 9. This is for 8th graders. This is not the 10th grade and the 11th
the
grade.
8th
Yeah.
grade. That's
This
not
is the,
fair.
sorry, I wasn't
Okay.
clear. It's called PSAT 8 by 9.
Okay.
And this test is, we replaced the iReady and we instituted the PSAT 8 by 9 for 8th graders.
Okay, so this is specific for 8th graders.
Yes, it's specific for 8th
Okay.
graders. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
That's why we still need to figure out something for the 6th and 7th grades, because this is only applies for the 8th grade.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but we do have the grouping procedures for the other lower grades, you know, when it comes to the math and English and the others, but,
Yeah, that's another actually, and another thing that I had was whatever grouping procedures we have, we should kind of keep it consistent and not keep changing it very frequently because people need to know exactly what counts for what. So right now, I don't think, even though we have a test slated, we really don't have a grouping procedure or we don't have a percentile level that would qualify. So it's kind of good to kind of do that math before we actually decide to use it for anything.
okay. Thank you. I just want to make some statements. I received some letters from the parents and a couple parents, 3 letters, actually 3 parents, that they are concerned about the overcrowding. So we had an overcrowding task force and we had several meetings. We're looking for solutions. And I don't think that, we can solve the problem tomorrow. It is a work in progress. We have not had a long-term facility plan for a long time, and the overcrowding is not an overnight issue. And now, what Mr. Brescher said that, we have a new vendor who are visiting all the schools and do the long-term facility plan for us, so we can work with a plan moving forward, how we're going to allocate the fund and how we're going to address certain issues, including the roofing of the schools and adding more classrooms. So unfortunately, I can't provide an answer to solve the overcrowding tomorrow, but we're working on it and we're working on a plan to address this step by step. The problem is that we have not had a plan in the past 7 years. We've been doing patchwork, fixing things. But moving forward, we're going to have a plan, and we will try to follow that plan to get the funding to solve all those issues.
Jerry, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So I know that the company who came very, very highly recommended, I heard about them from other groups that have used them, but people are continuing to ask us about the full-day kindergarten issue. So how is the company going to factor that in, or they're not going to deal with that question?
That's part of the overall plan. We need classrooms to address the overcrowding. So that is all part of the long-range facility plan. It's not only the expansion of the schools, the full-day kindergarten, and also some of the issues that we're facing, like the roofing issue that we have, which is going to cost us quite a lot of money. So, any other comments? See none? Let's open up for public comments. So, name, address, and 6 minutes. Okay. Andy.
Andy Fresco, 38 Corny Avenue. The last time I was here, I brought up the concern about the schools being open unsecured during election time in June.
Excuse me for just a minute, please. If you don't mind, I need this mic, all right?
Whatever you need.
There you go. Thank you.
Now, that was in June. We're in October. Where's the Class 3 guys? You said that the police department was working on a contract with the Board of Ed. Okay. All right. Let's let that go for a minute. Being that they're working on the contract, what has been done since then? Job description? Do we have a job description of what the class 3 are gonna be working? Who they answer to? How about a list of the costs? What's the cost of the uniform? The shirts, the vest, the gun belt, pants, radios. Does anybody have a list of that yet? Anybody, you know? You can interrupt me, I don't mind. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're gonna sit back and wait, and wait, and wait. Now, you're talking about vendors and outside workers. What would you do if you hired a vendor? It doesn't tell you what material he's gonna use. What's he gonna do? And guess what? He's not gonna answer to you. You know why? Because he don't have to. That's what we're getting with this class 3. Somebody's dropping the ball, and somebody should step forward and say who it is. I mean, this should have been done in June. Well, the contract was being negotiated. A job description, who do they report to? Who do they answer to? Who do they work for? Nobody? Okay.
I believe we have answers. I was letting him finish.
All right, let me finish up. Okay,
yeah.
all right. What happens if they do something, now they're gonna be sued? Who's responsible for that? The legal cost for that? Hourly rate? We come with that, yeah? This is it's a cluster, for lack of a word. You know, what do we have to do? You know what? We have to sacrifice a child, sacrifice a teacher, something. This should have been done. Somebody should be doing something here. The class 3 are not going to answer to you, and then what are we going to say next? Oh, well, you know what? Being that there's 17 schools, there's 23 class 3, we're going to need supervisors. So now we're going to get supervisors in on it? Where does it end? Here's my opinion. You want the security? Why don't you take it over? Do it. Do it for once and for all. You know, East Brunswick's doing it, New Brunswick's doing it, Old Bridge is doing it, Manalapan's doing it. Everybody's doing it, they're having no problems. The contract gets signed tomorrow. One of these class 3 guys is going to be put in the schools. How long is it going to take? Month? 2 months? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't hear anything about radios. You know, I mean, this all should have been done. This should have been done in June. Somebody should have had this done and came to you and say, okay, while we're waiting for the contract, let's work on what their job descriptions are going to be, who they're going to report to. They're out. When do they start? When they drive from home to police headquarters to get their guns and stuff, then to the school? Are we paying for that? I mean, you know what? Hey guys, it's election year. Let's get some answers. You know, I'm tired of going to Benjamin Franklin School and being inundated because I'm retired by parents wanting to know. They think I have. Well, I don't know. They want to know. People want to know. We want to know. So somebody please just answer those questions. Do we have job descriptions? Do we have a cost breakdown? Has it been handed to you? Who's paying for it? I would just like some answers, please, please.
Okay. Yeah, you want to try? Yes.
I know it's a long road that we've been down. And I guess I'm not happy where we are. But all the other towns that you mentioned, I don't believe have went through what we've went through. The town came to us with a contract. Now, we do have, there's many issues with the contract, but there's 2 big issues. One of the big issues was that they wanted us to indemnify them and hold them harmless. Our insurance company won't allow us to indemnify a vendor, and that's who the township would be a vendor. So they worked on some language. I mean, you know, attorneys like they are work on language, and they came up with language that looked like it was good to everybody until we just sent it to our carrier, who tells us it's still unacceptable. So our carrier's not going to indemnify or hold harmless the township. They are a vendor. They have to be treated like a vendor. Any vendor that comes into our school has to give us a certificate. So we need the same thing from the township. That's the one issue that's holding it up. The second issue we have is, what are they going to do? What are these officers going to do? Are they going to sit at the door, Do they walk around? Do they spend time in classroom? I don't know. We've asked, and we don't have a job description or anything that we've received from the police department with any sort of duties or anything that they're going to do. We talked about active shooter drills and all the other requirements that needed to be. And we haven't been able to get those answers from the township. So at that point, we've now recommended that we're going to hire a safety director, someone that would have the criteria of law enforcement and also security. You know, somebody that comes with a security background, so that we know that our students and our staff are safe in the schools. I don't know that the answer is putting a gun in every school. I mean, that's debatable. That's been debated. We have members that feel strongly both ways. We have members that feel that we as a town are supposed to be protected by our police department. Our police department inherently works for the township. It's a township's responsibility to protect. It's our responsibility to educate. But we don't get the opportunity to do that because we are also forced to protect the students. So now somehow we've become like the Edison Board of Education Police Department. And we've went so far now as we're contacting outside vendors that are security companies that could be armed to put them in here. Because if we can't come to an agreement with the town on the indemnification, we can get an indemnification. We don't need that from an outside vendor. An outside vendor will give us the money. I'd rather have our own officers that work here. The other issue we have is our idea was to have an officer in a school that got to know the staff and got to know the students. Because of what's happened in the police department with the overtime, we no longer get that option. There's some outside vendor at the municipality that's going to assign officers on a random rotational aspect for us to have. So we can't even have the same officer. So I don't know that we're getting the same benefit, because to me, the gun wasn't the big benefit. It was that officer's interaction with the students on a daily basis that was really what was kind of going forward. Now, to be honest with you, I've asked the township and our board attorney on numerous occasions over the last couple months for a list of what this is going to cost us. And nobody can seem to produce this list. I was going to ask it at our next meeting with our liaison committee with the town, of which our last one was over 2 months ago. They scheduled one 2 months in advance, and then the township had to cancel that. You know, I mean, we're willing to sit down, we're willing to speak to them. We haven't spoken to the mayor on it. He has representatives that come to the meetings and speak to us about it. It might be beneficial if the mayor came to the meeting and sat down with us, you know, directly, so we can just get it squared away. And if we need the mayor and the 2 attorneys and our insurance broker, whatever we need, I mean, we're more than willing to do it, but we got to get the breakdown from them. They need to do what we need them to do in our schools. Right now, they're deciding what they're going to do with the police in the school or the class 3s. We don't even get a say. So if we feel they should be at a front door and the police feel that they want them roaming around, they're going to roam around. So they're going to do whatever they feel they want to do, irregardless of what our security director or what we have in mind. So these things do need to be worked out, and we are not getting very far. We'll grant you that.
Somebody has to take the brunt. I mean, you know, when the head's dead, the body don't work. I mean, you know, we sit here, I mean, and I've been to Mr. Errico's school and schools in South Plainfield. You're not getting in there. I don't care who you are. Even if you're in a police uniform, you're going to wait your turn. This is getting ridiculous. It's ludicrous, and it hasn't just happened in the last couple of weeks or couple of months. It's been going on for years with the school shootings, incidents in the schools, and somebody's got to step up. If it's somebody on the board that can't handle it, then fine. You know, no problem. Step aside, let somebody else handle it. If it's somebody in the police department, let's get somebody else. But something's got to be done. This is ludicrous. What is a job description? I mean, put down the job description. You're going to tell me that they can't come up with a cost, what it's going to cost to outfit each individual, and who's paying for that?
The police department hasn't given us a job description. We've asked for it. They haven't given us a cost breakdown. We've asked for it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I can tell you why it was stalled. And the only reason why I tell you is I can tell you this at this point, is our prior superintendent just spoke in front of Congress on the merits of mental health and certain IT things as being relevant to school safety. Because he never wanted to have our schools like a prison, I think was his quote. So, you know, under that administration, it seems no one wanted to have any armed officers in the schools. So that's why we didn't have one. We didn't start talking about it until Margaret came and Mr. Saxon came, and we started talking then about we're not actually qualified in security, so we need a director. We need somebody that has that knowledge. Because when I asked the police department for information, I didn't get it. So we need somebody that knows how to maybe talk that language. I don't know. I tried communicating it and I couldn't get answers.
Hey, real quick, Mr. Fresco, about the South Plainfield schools, they are armed police officers assigned to the schools.
Yep.
I understand that our police department, who is a fine police department, in my opinion, is understaffed and they need people. I understand they're hiring. They can't do that. So that was our suggestion, was to look at class 3s, retired police officers with a police background that are armed. And with our security guards, which are in place currently. So every school, I believe, Ms. Cantali has a security guard in it now? Correct. So now we just need to get the class 3 situation worked out.
So here's the gist. Here's what I'm getting from this, is that the school board is doing everything humanly possible to get this done. Everybody here wants all the kids safe. There's nobody here that's going to deny that. I mean, you know, I'm not even going to say the police department wants that, but the school board's moving ahead there, keep asking the right questions, but somebody's not answering. Somebody's got to be held accountable. You know, somebody's got to be held accountable. Somebody's got to step up and say, if you can't do it, tell us. Put a deadline. I mean, this is out of control, sir. It's out of control. You know, I mean, you know, they got to do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the comment, Andy. So just to add on, you know, we do have the hourly rates. We have the radio. We have the cost of the radio as well. There are some additional costs. We just don't have the detailed breakdowns, but we'll continue.
You have the radios now?
We don't have
The
them
cost.
yet, but we
Cost.
have the cost and everything.
I believe they have them. I believe they're in now.
Yeah,
I think they just came in.
yeah,
And who's using them?
Police department has them.
yeah.
We have no police department in the schools.
We do have some SROs in the schools.
SROs.
Yeah, they're assigned, they're on duty. Those are the two, the school
Right.
resource
But
officers.
I believe
Other than that, we have radios, but no cops in the schools.
But I still believe we have police officers in the school when we can get them.
Yeah, we can potentially use those radios for the security officers and communicating.
That's not my question.
Yeah, I know. I
We have the
understand.
radios,
Yeah,
and we have nobody using them. Are we paying for them, or
yeah. Yes,
are they free?
We pay for it.
So we're paying for radios, that we have nobody using them, because the police department's not giving us the class 3 to move ahead.
I think, you have it.
So we're paying for radios that are just sitting there doing nothing.
It's a matter of just getting somebody from the administration, I think, in the town with us.
Please tell me, at least the principals have the radios. At least
Yes, they do.
they're on with it. At least somebody's using the radios.
All administrators have
I don't want to hear that they're in the box in the closet.
No.
And we're paying for them.
I'm using them too.
Good. All right, thank you again.
All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What is the cost for, hourly cost for class 3 officers versus the security officers that we have?
The hourly rate,
Yes?
once we get them, I believe it was $32 per hour.
For the class 3 officers?
That was the negotiated price, yes.
So the armed security officers, we would be paying $35 per hour.
Yeah.
And what about the security officers that we are getting?
I think they're salaried.
It's part of the contract.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so we can't talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Through the
but
chair, I just want to make one point. The contract hasn't been finalized, so the rates that are being referenced are just rates that have been negotiated.
So
They
far.
haven't been agreed to by both sides, just so
Gotcha.
everyone knows.
But Shivy, I'd also like to let you know, in that contract, when they have the $32 an hour times the 17 schools times 8 hours a day, and you add it all up, it comes out to roughly like $90,000. But the township's gonna bill us, I think it was stated like $120-something thousand, and we asked them for a breakdown to see what that difference was. That was, I'd say probably like a month and a half ago, and we haven't received it yet. That's that document with the total cost that I'm asking for a breakdown for.
I have a follow-up question as well. Last week in our meeting, in the closed session, we discussed this.
We can't discuss anything that we could discuss in closed session.
So even if you know why this was held up, we can't talk about it?
All right. Any other comments? Okay.
Good evening. Tom Maroney, 107 Stephenville Parkway. Just a quick follow-up. I was very disturbed when one of you gentlemen said that the mayor isn't involved in this. He sends people. That's unacceptable. I mean, it should be to all of us. He has to get involved. He is the boss, the chief of police. He's the only one who can tell the police what to do. So, you know, we should all be going to council meetings, yelling and screaming about this, and letting the mayor know what we want him to do. At least go show up at a meeting. It doesn't do any good to send your delegate who really can't say, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. No, they'll have to say, I have to go back and talk to the mayor. So the mayor has to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Other, okay. Name, address.
Hello everyone, I am Madhulika Verma, 15 Cedar Street. I have an issue that me and my neighbors had been pursuing for months now. This is a hard copy, I want to give it to you.
Thank you.
So we have more than 8 families. Kids are going to Woodrow Wilson, taking a bus from Phillips and Middlesex Avenue. Kids walking uphill to that stop for about 10 minutes to get the bus. We have no sidewalks in our area. The roads don't get cleaned in the snow very quickly. It's very unsafe to walk, especially when winter is around the corner. We had been to the office multiple times personally, to the transport office, to the administration office. I have few communication with Mr. Mishar on the email and Mr. Drescher. Nothing is being done. We have 3 more families moved in. They are all within a block radius, about 11 kids walking more than 10 minutes uphill to get to the bus. We are requesting the stop closer for the safety concern. We seriously need this to be done. I don't know what the legalities are, what the contracts, how they work, how much funds are involved, but this does not seem like a big issue. It does not need an additional driver. It does not need a new bus. The same route can be rerouted through the stop that we are suggesting. And May to October now, nothing is being done. We have any?
Can I?
Yeah.
Can I? No. As far as busing, we received your petition. Typically, we pick our routes, I'm going to say from February to May was when the routes are established, I'd say. They go out for bid. Once they go out for bid, we're then locked in at those stops and those routes. For us to change anything after that, it would be out of the graciousness of the bus company's heart to do that for us, even if it made sense and it didn't seem that it would cost or take anything to do that. Or they can change the contract and change their pricing on it, which they do to charge us more money. So that route we can definitely look at next year. It would have to be, it would go through our bus committee like the ones that went through the year prior that we just looked at this year. John would probably take a look at the stops themselves and go out there once he gets everything squared away with our current busing, because we had a lot of issues, I guess, at the beginning of this year, between like computer IT and all kinds of other reasons why we had issues. So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Ms. Sudesh, she pursued the same issue last year for the request was pushed to next year, meaning 18-19 being done, and now it's 18-19 and we're still going to push it to 19-20.
I'm unaware of last year. I really am. And if you did send it to me last year, I'd apologize. And I would.
No, I did not do personally, but Ms. Sudesh, she did. She's called the transport here.
Yeah. Come. Name, address.
Yeah, I reached out to Woodrow Wilson Middle School Transportation Department, and they made a request that nothing can be done this year, but if you guys reach out to us in the summer before the school opens for the next year, we might be able to take that request. And that's the process she started this year in the May for this school year. So it was, told by the middle school to me. I called them multiple times because my daughter started 6th grade last year, and this year, we have many kids around the corner from the community. So now kid numbers increase, so we have 11 kids around the block. That's why we are insisting that we should have that stop at our community block.
So when the contracts are signed in February to May, why
Speaking
so when the contracts are finalized in February to May, why she was told to call in summer when everything is done and nothing can be done for one more year?
No, so like I would tell you, it's good for you to bring it up to our attention now, or during the summer, or at any time. But technically, I tell you, the second week in January, you want to send it to the board members, because we establish committees, and transportation is one of the committees. So while I was on transportation this year, I might not be on that committee next year. So if you sent it to me, and then you were under the impression that I'm going to take care of it next year when I'm not on that committee, that wouldn't happen. So it would be January, say about 15th or 18th.
So you are telling that this year we have no hope, we should wait for next school year, right?
I don't want to ever tell anyone no hope. What we would do now is we'd ask John to go take a look at the stop. He'll come out, he'll take a look at them, he'll see about the feasibility. He'll end up calling the bus company to see if they're willing to do that at no cost to us.
I believe that was the communication I had with you in August, and when you said this communication should have been done in September first week.
Yeah, actually, I would have thought that we could have done it the first week in September. But it looks like we didn't straighten out our busing problems. We had a problem with Dapper. I think they had, I don't even know how many routes they had. How many routes did Dapper have, Dan?
Do they want to turn back?
No, in total.
Total routes, we have 468 total routes.
And Dapper was short 30 drivers, so our problem was...
I understand your concern, but as I said in our request, as we see it from our side, there is no extra bus needed, there is no extra driver needed. The driver comes to the stop by 7:30, 7:40. He stands at the intersection next to what we are requesting for 15-20 minutes, waiting for the time to go to the stop. He is there, he is standing, not picking the kids. We're just requesting him to make it inbuilt into the contract so kids can walk there and sit in the bus.
So
he is there actually.
So to answer your question, it's not, as Mr. Brescia said, we're not going to tell people no hope. So we still have some busing issues right now. Once we have those issues resolved, we can tell John Griffiths, who's in charge of the busing, to look into it.
Okay, so should I expect any communication from the transport department, or we just keep calling and see if something happens?
You don't need to call. We received your email, so we'll give you an update once things settle down, and we can look into whether we can add a stop or not.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. So we're gonna hold the. Excuse me. Can we hold this as a record for?
Yeah, sure. I brought it for you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joseph Johnson, and I live on 407 Durham Avenue. And I was just wondering, is it, in regards to safety and protection, is there a night officer during after-school hours or sports teams or extracurricular activities after school? Is there anyone protecting the building at that particular time?
Yes. Yes, there is.
And is that in every school?
Where there are activities where children are present, yes.
Is there one right now?
I don't know what your point is.
Well, because there's kids playing and practicing, I want to assume, and I did not see an
On
officer.
a daily basis, I approve overtime for security guards to supervise events where children are present.
Okay.
So where a person is at this exact moment, I can't give you that information.
Okay, thank
But
you.
yes to your question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Maria?
Hello, Maria Orchid, 83 Jefferson. First, I'd like to thank the committee for coming to Edison High. I wanted to let you know I have 2 kids that attend here every day, so I'm very proud of them. My first question is, I'd like to know if the sidewalks and fields will also be included in the study?
Okay. Anything else?
Yes. We have a particular issue with crossing guards. How the public can be, or how you can communicate with the public when there's a crossing guard not at their posts or not doing their job properly. And my last thing is, I understand there was overcrowded meetings previously. Would you be able to give us a timeline of how you proceed the overcrowding study to develop, like within the next couple of months down the road? How are you taking this information that you're gathering from these other vendors, and how do we see the outcome? I understand there was overcrowded studies previously, but for this one, what the benefits are going to be.
Okay. So, you want to address? Because you're the finance facility chair. I could address a little bit.
Okay, we
I'll
have,
give it to you.
right, the new company that we have here that's doing this, he's putting together, or they're putting together, a comprehensive plan for what we're gonna need in total to solve our overcrowding problem. Now, the timeline looks like we're going to have a meeting sometime mid to late November, before Thanksgiving we're looking at, where we can bring people from the public in. We're going to let everybody know the information that we now have as far as what we do need. Take input from the public again. And then I'd say January, February, we're going to have a plan to present out to the public for how we're going to address these issues and what we perceive to be, you know, the avenue to go. There's many different things. I mean, there's probably about 4 different scenarios we have. So it's just a matter of which one looks the best. And this company's going out, reaching out to every school that we have, you know, to talk to all of the administrators in the schools to see what their input is.
And this plan also takes into consideration the new developments that are going to be in our areas.
Actually, that was part of what this is why we did this. Yes. They're going to sit down, they're going to go through trends with the town, they're going to see what the town has on the drawing board potentially, and we're going to know, I'm going to say about 8 years ago or so, we had a plan that told us how many students we would have in our schools present day. And the plan is pretty accurate. I mean, people can argue all they want about it, but at the end of the day, it was pretty accurate. It's the same type of plan. The plan takes all of that into account so that we'll know how many classrooms we need, you know, whether the classrooms are auditoriums or lunchrooms, because that's an issue too.
That's conforming to today's ADA requirements.
That's what we're going to be looking at. I mean, we're going to be adding additions. The additions are, but the rest of our school is still the size that it is. You know, we're not going to be taking down walls to make the existing rooms bigger.
And any consideration to sidewalks and fields in this study?
The sidewalks, we should have a handle on what we need for sidewalks and parking lots. The fields, no. We didn't talk about the fields.
Thank you, thank you.
And just to add on, the crossing guards, they report to the police department, they don't report to the school board.
So if there's an occurrence, the parent should call the police or traffic?
Yeah, they don't report to us.
They're not our employees.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Brenner.
Good evening, Bill Brunner, 215 Loring Avenue. First, I want to thank whoever was responsible for changing these meetings now, alternating months between J.P. Stevens and Edison High School, the way it used to be. It makes it so much simpler for the public, more parking, instead of having to try to find some of these schools that are a little tough to get around to. Secondly, on this overall program that you're talking about, Rich, the bottom line is no matter what the plan is, it's going to take money.
Yes.
And the only way you can get the money is to bond for it. So are you in the process of preparing, is that part of the plan that you're working up the figures? Because you're going to have to present a bond issue to the public.
Yes.
There's no other way of raising the money.
No, that's part of the overall plan.
Do you
Would be
have
a
any,
bond.
do you have any ballpark figures of what you're thinking of?
Numbers? No, we really don't.
Because to do all that you want to accomplish, it's going to take an awful lot of money.
It is, and that's part of these meetings we're going to have with the public, is at the end of the day, you know, if you're looking at a $200 million bond, we might not go for a $200 million bond, we might go for a $100 million bond and have to deal with the other aspects later on, but we're going to take the public's input on that so that we get a direction at the end of the day as to what we're going to do with the bond. The main focus is the overcrowding. I mean, their initial plan will encompass, you know, air conditioning and building upgrades, and it'll have everything in it. But that's discussion, you know, just for the entire public, the entire community. And then we'll decide what we're going to go and what we're going to bond. But you are going to need a bond to get a school built, yes.
A big bond. I'll happily volunteer for the public part of that meeting.
All right, Una.
Hi, good evening. Yuna Chen, 39 Remington Drive. First, I'd like to thank the board for your hard work in switching the health insurance carrier, so can save the taxpayers about $4 million, and that's quite impressive. And I'm happy that to know that the money will be put to address the overcrowding issue. Today, I'm gonna bring up another issue, which is the food service. As a parent, I have seen that my daughter's lunch getting worse in the last couple of years. So the food, first, the food is not fresh. Sometimes the milk is deteriorated already, and sometimes there's mold in the salad, and the carrots bag is soggy, and also the portion is really small. Like you have chicken nuggets, 5 tiny pieces. You can get more with $1 at McDonald's, and also the pizza slice is only half of the size of the Costco's pizza. You can imagine that. So I know some kids have to buy 2 lunches in order to keep full, and also the service is very slow. You have like 50 to 100 kids in one line, so it takes about 15 minutes to get your food. So the kids only have like 5 minutes to eat, and so most of the food will get dumped into the trash. So and I know that we got a C, grade C in the niche website for our food service. So I'd like to know that, because I know that you have a food committee, so I'd like to know, have you heard about complaints and concerns from parents? and what have you done to address the issue? And also, our food vendor, Chartwell, has been with our school for a long time. So, do you know like how long has it been there? And do we have ever considered like getting competitors and bid for the food vendors?
I can answer regarding the food quantity. If you go to the website of United States Department of Agriculture, you will realize that the quantity and the calorie intake is actually dictated by the USDA, like what's the minimum and what's the maximum calorie intake. And because a lot of our kids also qualify for free and reduced price food, and that is why the USDA makes sure that the kids are getting the minimal calorie intake, and they're not exceeding the maximum calorie intake. Regarding the complaints about the food service, the food served in the school, the first time I actually heard about a complaint was 2 or 3 days ago when I got 2 emails from parents, and I immediately responded to those 2 emails, and I know that I forwarded one to Dan Michaud, who takes care of the food, and he actually spoke to Felicia, who is the main person at Chartwell's, and I think they are looking at the problem as of now. And secondly, if ever you have an issue where you see, whatever that you mentioned, I would recommend that right away you should, just go and show that to the building principal so that we can address it, because obviously the food that is served must not be spoiled, and the kids should be able to eat a healthy meal.
I would like to add something. So I'm going to speak to you now with my vice principal's hat on, from J.P. Stevens, Woodrow Wilson, and the preschools that I was the vice principal at, and we've had Chartwells all those years. It is simply astounding to see the rapidity with which the children at J.P. Stevens and Edison High School are able to get their lunch. They have a very short time for lunch, and the food service is incredible in getting them their lunches within minutes, number 1. Number 2, at Woodrow Wilson, the kids get their food so fast that they eat it within 10 minutes, and then the other 10 minutes they spend reading. It was one of the things that always flabbergasted me. I had to be in the cafeteria at all times, every lunch, every day. Third, because I ate Chartwell's food for so many years, I can tell you, it's not gourmet, but it's pretty darn good. Fourth, recently, Mr. Shi went to Chartwell's and requested, could we get halal food in for our Muslim children? Within a week or 2, we had it. Anything that we have ever asked of Chartwell's, they have done for us. They have accommodated our vegetarian requests. There are vegetarian choices every day on every menu, whether it's elementary, middle, or high. I'm going to speak as the principal of the 2 preschools where food was brought in for our children on a daily basis. And every consideration was given to what a 3- and 4-year-old would like to eat. And I can tell you that the difference between a McDonald's chicken nugget and a chicken nugget that is prepared by Chartwell's, who has to abide by the regulations of the Federal Food Administration, is going to be very, very different, okay? And then finally, what you need to know is that in the many years that we have been associated with Chartwell's, and by the way, I spoke to Mr. Michaud about this recently, there are only 3 vendors in New Jersey that are really big enough to handle Edison, because we do have so many kids and we don't have kitchens in every building. Chartwell's gives us back every year, and they have consistently over $300,000 gives us back to Edison. And I don't think the public is too aware of that. They have put kitchens in some of our buildings for us. They have given us equipment when we needed it. They are very, very good to us. So I never saw a soggy carrot bag, I gotta tell you, and I had a lot of experience eating Chartwell's food.
I'll just add one thing. So, as the USDA dictates, the calorie content, they also dictate that, some of the food, the fat content, as well as, the whole grain, what part should be whole grain. So we all know, tasty food has a lot of things which are not very healthy. And so those are some of the rules that, whoever prepares food, whether it's Chartwell's or somebody else, they have to abide by those rules. And the second thing is that, definitely in some schools, the food that is served is not as good as the food served in some other schools, and that's purely because of the kitchens. Because in some of our schools where the equipment is there and we have a good kitchen and the food is prepared, the food is tastier because obviously it's fresh, it's made there. However, some of the other schools, the food is not fresh. By fresh I mean is that it's not cooked in the kitchen and it comes in a bag. Because we are not, so when we solve that overcrowding problem, maybe we can have good kitchens as well, where we can actually produce the food or cook the food right there, so that we can have better taste. Because obviously freshly made food will always taste better than food which comes out in a bag. So I mean, I totally understand your concern, because the food has to taste better, and kids always are, some kids are picky, and so that's why, thank you for your comments, and, we are doing the best that we can.
I brought this up before because I had Chartwell's food. I mean, we have it once in a while. They bring it into the Ed Center, and it's nice. I mean, the beautiful wraps, and it looks like almost any deli you'd go to. But if I hear that it's different, I'd almost recommend then that maybe Chartwell's should give us what the students are having at our meeting, and let us have that at the meeting and decide whether this is acceptable or not.
We did that last year, Mr. Brescher. They brought in the new meals that they were cooking to one of our last meetings of the year, and they laid it all out on the table for us, and we did have it, and it was very tasty. So they have done that for us.
It could just be in presentation. In the school, they might have a plastic tray, and where we have this chrome with a gold leaf, thing that opens up. I mean, presentation goes a long way. So I'm just saying, if we got it in the same format that the students do, we might understand, maybe where they're coming from. I'd like to try it one more time.
Yeah, so the food...
The open bar does work too.
Yeah, the website, the food looks very pretty, but what you get is totally different.
And I just want to add something. I think middle school and high school, I think middle school and high school, they do have multiple people to handle the food, so the lines goes much quicker. But I know for sure for elementary school, I don't know, Beth, if you ever go to elementary school, there's only 2 persons there from Chartwell. One handles the food, one collect the money or take the student's ID. So you mentioned there are 50 students there in one line. I don't think the person in the last line, in the end of the line, is going to get her food, his or her food, in 10 minutes. And there's only 20 minutes lunchtime. So I've been there because I happened to pick up my kids from the school when she's sick, and I saw the line is really long. So a lot of time they don't get the food in time, so they only have 5-10 minutes to finish the food. So I know that it could be different from middle school and high school, but that's the reality in elementary school. And they don't have a real kitchen, so it's just microwave, heat up food. And my daughter went there out her lunch on Friday. She got a piece of so-called breadstick with cheese, but there's no cheese in it. And she told me she's never going to order lunch again because it's just disgusting. So that's what I heard a lot of, I don't know anybody else, but I heard a lot of complaints from parents and kids. If you go out and ask the kids, ask the students, how's the lunch, how's the line, maybe we'll know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add on that, for the high schools, because the overcrowded situation, we have some of the kids who actually eat the lunch very early. So, with the number of kids, the pure number of kids in each schools, that it is taking much longer for them to get their food. So this is definitely something we're going to look into it, and I hope that in the long-range facility plan, we're going to have some kitchens planned, for that. All right? Okay, Mrs. Conway.
Elizabeth Conway, 20 Netherwood Circle. My number one is, I saw that you had a resolution to accept the contract with Mr. Saxton. Is that public knowledge, his contract, or is that a personnel issue that you can't share with the
It will
public?
be published.
It will be?
Yes.
After you've already agreed to it?
Which was fine. Yes.
Personnel item, after it's voted on, comes the document.
You didn't vote on it yet?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so we will get it. Okay. Number two, I've noticed that you've hired security guards in the personnel section. What kind of requirements do they have to adhere to? And will they be getting any kind of training from the district as to what you want them to do? Next one. I know with the overcrowding, guys, you gotta be more annoying. You ask a question, they don't answer you, you call them the next day. If they don't answer, you call them the next day. I can show you how to do it, I'm really good at calling people forth and back. But while you're being annoying, can you reach out to the schools to see if there's any areas of the schools that can be utilized in a different way until that time comes when we do get more space? And my last thing is lunches. I taught for 16 years at the elementary level, and that was always a thorn in my side, the lunches. So I was always a big proponent of speaking to the lunch ladies and giving them my suggestions and talking to the committees that were held at the schools. And I have to tell you, they have been good. Because many times if I forgot my lunch and I didn't want to take the time to go out, I've actually bought school lunches. I've gotten them through the teacher lunches that get delivered, and I've also purchased what the kids eat. I always thought I had to pay more for the same amount of food, but it was tasty. And I always let them know that I did appreciate the food that they were giving to the students. A couple of times over the years, there were certain things that I thought were inappropriate, and of course I was annoying, and those things were taken away. But that's something that needs to be reviewed on a basis, and if you have your local committees at the school that include the children, and then that can be brought to the attention of the major committees, then Chartwell's has been accommodating over the years. So I have to say that, and I'm picky. So, very good. So I asked my questions, now you can answer them.
I'd like to add one thing on the Chartwell's issue also. They have not raised their prices with our students in 8 years. In fact, when Dr. O'Malley came, they dropped the price. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Michaud, they have not upped the prices?
That's correct.
Good.
For our children, they've held the line for 8 years. That's pretty incredible.
That wasn't one of my questions.
Well, sorry, but...
Okay.
With regard to security guards, to answer the few questions that you had, my department was the group that transitioned all of the security guards in. We did an orientation with them. We gave them the job description. We walked them through the expectation of the district. We described the difference between elementary, middle, and high school to folk that had probably not worked in a high school prior. So to answer your question, yeah, they were debriefed.
And what were their qualifications?
Their qualifications, they were screened by the chief academic officers.
But there was no, a high school diploma was enough? Or was there anything else?
It was a high school diploma,
Okay.
prior experience in working in safety and security.
That's what I'm looking for.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to share the job description with you, or you can go on the website and see it, it's there.
And what about reaching out to the principals for areas within the schools that could be utilized until you do something else?
We have empty classrooms.
Not that they're empty classrooms, but for instance, at the high school, there's a media center, at least there was last year, that had computers in it. Well, if each child has a computer, are the same computers in the media center, or are they PCs versus MacBooks? Can we utilize, and if those aren't being utilized to the best advantage, can we use that space for breaking it up into additional classrooms? I know at the library at Lincoln, that used to be a gorgeous library. It was probably the best elementary library. But since then, they have broken it up, and I actually saw it the other night, and I was like, wow, what a change. But they're utilizing the space within the school. The library at J.P. Stevens is huge, and it also has computers. Are they the same computers that the children use, that they are able to talk to one another, or are they PCs that the children aren't using because now the children are using MacBooks? And I believe that Mac doesn't like HP and PCs, and PC doesn't like Mac. So, are you kidding me? Are you gonna go to your friend again? He's raising his hand. Sure, why not?
No, you know what it is, when you talk about the space in the schools, that SSP, that's something that they're looking at, and they're talking to our administrators to see what they're using for the rooms and what that's part of that whole study they're gonna give us. That's one of the items. It's actually, when I tell you, it's a very comprehensive plan they're gonna bring to us. It will be.
But everything is just taking forever. So I'm trying to talk about, can we utilize something in the meantime?
The last time that I tried to do something and get it done quickly, I was chastised.
That hasn't stopped you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Carol Podolsky, 39 Jonathan Drive. First of all, just in reference to what Mrs. Conway had said about utilizing different areas of the school, I wanted to add that in the high school library we were in, I took a look at some of the reference books that are on the shelves. There aren't many books in our school libraries now, but in addition to the PCs that are in the library, many of the reference books are way outdated, so no one could ever use those reference books for reference. And in terms of Mr. Brescher's comment about looking into how to use the other areas of the school, I've worked in this district for about 20 years. Most of that time, I either taught on the floor in a classroom as a reading specialist, or I was in a closet. And I have found that if there's an empty space and there are children that need to be taught, we kind of find each other, the teacher and the children, and the empty space, so it all can be used. But I got up to talk about school security, and I'd like to thank Mr. Fresca for speaking so clearly and asking the questions that need to be asked. I began teaching in the 1970s, not here, and we had a school shooting in my small southern New Jersey town. No children died. The teacher survived her injuries, but the priest who was in charge of the Catholic school did not. You can only imagine how this affected the children who weren't injured, their educations and their faith. The shooter was someone I grew up with, a young man, the product of our school district, nice kid. He may have had some problems, he may have had some issues, but back then we didn't have the programs or the policies that we have today to help us, help the children grow up to not become dangerous to others. So my basic question on that was, When will it be possible to see the newly revised policy 5512 on harassment, intimidation, and bullying HIB that you voted on tonight?
I believe it's in the packet.
It's in your packets, it's not in the public's packets. That's what I was trying to explain, Mr. Shi. Traditionally, the old and the new policy are always in the agenda when changes are made for like the last 20 years or so.
So it'll be on the website tomorrow?
It'll be on the website tomorrow? Thank you.
Sorry, I thought it was there already.
It's on the website? Okay. Keith?
That's it for the public comments.
Keith Hahn, 81 Fairview Avenue. I didn't speak at the last meeting, it was the meeting before I spoke. And all the facts and everything I brought up at that point, that came from public records, ELEC reports, and stuff that's easily searchable on the internet. After that meeting, I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. DeStefano, and he provided me with screenshots of text messages and some emails. I just want to read the contents of them emails. The first one was from October 9th, 2017 at 4:53 p.m. And it was from Ms. Pang to Mr. DeStefano. And quote, "Paul, can I have your personal email, not the K-12 one? Want to send some write-up to you, which I plan to email to the parents and put out on the news website." October 9th at 4:54, Mr. DeStefano responds to Ms. Pang via text message with his personal email address. Same day at 4:58 p.m., Ms. Pang responds to Mr. Stefano with a text message. "It's just the first one. I want to add your story next and a few more maybe." 4:58 p.m., I get a copy of the email which Ms. Pang sent to Mr. DeStefano. That was a draft in progress. At 5:04, Mr. DeStefano sends a text message back to Ms. Pang saying, "I think we should," this is after he reads that email of the flyer that she was working on. And it says, "I think we should take a step back and assess the situation before sending anything out. We really need to put our heads together and come up with something that is rock solid and irrefutable." That was what Mr. DeStefano wrote back to Ms. Pang. She responds at 5:14 via text message. "Yes, agree. By the way, it won't be from Unity Team," which was your campaign team, Jerry, the Board of Ed Unity Team, in case you forgot.
No, I didn't.
And so it won't be from the Unity Team. It's just a blog. We could talk tomorrow after dinner. On October 17th, Mr. DeStefano receives an email from a parent that was sent out, and it was that same flyer that Mrs. Pang had been working on that she sent to Mr. DeStefano to proofread. And that flyer came out from an individual, Andrew Morales, with an email address of peopleforprogress@gmail.com. With just these facts, it's clear that probably you, Mr. Shi, but definitely Ms. Pang, willingly and knowingly violated the New Jersey election laws. According to Mr. Rivera's memo, which I was fortunate enough to get and read, you may have subjected the board to civil litigation and exposed the taxpayers to liability, and you might even be guilty of NJS 2C30-2, official misconduct, which states, "A public servant is guilty of official misconduct when, with the purpose to obtain a benefit for himself," in this case it would probably be winning the election, or with the purpose to obtain a benefit for himself or another, or to injure or deprive another of a benefit. In this case, it would be the other candidates who were running in the Board of Election who probably lost the election. This is a crime of the second degree, which has a presumptive sentence of 5 years in jail. These violations are serious, and the board needs to address them in some way, shape, or form. I know the town council plans on doing a committee of the whole to start sending out subpoenas and investigate the other people that were responsible for the racist flyer and these anonymous People for Progress flyers. I would just like you to answer, Mr. Shi, was Ms. Pang operating independently by herself and given these flyers or working with this anonymous group and violating these laws on her own with People for Progress, or was she working under your direction?
Do you have any other questions?
No, that's it.
So,
Thank you.
through the chair, I'm going to respond and advise all board members that, given that this is an ongoing investigation by the New Jersey Attorney General's office, as well as potential other entities and other law enforcement entities, all board members should not comment or speak to any of the issues that were raised concerning the allegations made by Mr. Hahn.
If I could just interrupt.
Let me finish.
I just got one thing to say.
No, I didn't interrupt you. So my point is that it's clear, it's been affirmed that there's an investigation going on.
Who affirmed that?
It's my understanding there's an investigation by the Attorney General's office.
But who confirmed that with you?
I've been told there's an investigation going on.
By who?
I've been told.
By who? Because the Attorney Generals in the paper have said they can neither confirm nor deny.
Well,
so I'm just asking if you had communications with somebody from which...
There's an investigation going on.
But who did you confirm
that
with?
If there is an investigation going on, board members should not comment, as I do not want any board members to be involved in any obstruction or any hindering of an ongoing investigation that may or may not be going on. Secondly, at the last meeting that you attended, Mr. Hahn, you mentioned that you were aware and knew that Mr. Shi had not participated in an investigation by law enforcement, and you were wondering why he didn't participate. I don't know how you know that and how you would know whether or not he's been working with law enforcement or not, but that if you do have information or you've been given any information about an ongoing investigation and his involvement, that needs to be disclosed. And any information that you have today or that you read about has not been disclosed to this board, or I'm not aware of it being turned over to the appropriate authorities. And I would recommend...
I have emails that are time-stamped that everything I had today went to the Attorney General's office.
As of when?
As of when I got it.
When was that?
I'd have to check the date, but it was sometime after the last board meeting.
Okay. So my recommendation and strong recommendation to the board is what I said. Please be guided accordingly.
Just one question with that. Mr. Shi, based on what the attorney, Mr. Rivera, said, have you cooperated with police, or are you willing to sit down and be interviewed by police?
Again, I'm going to direct
Mr.
Shi not to answer those questions.
He's an elected board official, and he sat here at the last meeting and said that it's under investigation and we want to move forward. He was the alleged victim in this whole thing. It's kind of hard to move forward with the investigation if Mr. Shi is not cooperating. So I would just like to know if he plans on cooperating with the authorities. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I had a whole thing, but my attorney recommended, I guess I don't talk about my whole thing. So I get that, but there are certain things that I would like to just address. I know that Mr. Hahn came up here and he asked for a board member to resign, yet he received information from another board member, and I didn't hear him ask for that board member to resign. That same board member used all this information to get himself elected, and yet now maybe feels guilty. I don't know what the reason is, but he has given information to Mr. Hahn, and if it is really so bad, he should really resign. I mean, if morally at this time, you know, your moral compass comes to you and tells you it's wrong, I would think that they would. Now, on the other note, because People's for Progress and the Racist Flyer are two different things. On the other note, the Racist Flyer, from what I understand, there is information. The Attorney General has been not coming forward, and I've heard that at council meetings. But we have a councilman, Sam Joshi, who has said at the council meeting that he has information. And I'll be honest with you, I see more people in this room here today than I do in that council chamber. So if anybody does really care about that racist flyer and how we get to the bottom of it, we need to go to the council. We need to tell Sam that we need him to give us that information, not give it to the Attorney General or give it to the police department, but to show the public. And I'd like to get to the conclusion of that racist flyer.
Yes, Tony. Yes, Tony. You want to speak?
Hi everybody, my name is Kirit Patel, residence 1 Marcos Court, Edison. My only question is, when these two people are going to be resigned? Because it's getting so much fed up in the community, dividing the community, both Indian community comes out first. The flyer went out is really bad. We have to find out how long you're going to take the decision to get them resigned. That's what I want. Thank you.
Other comments? Yes, Vimo.
Bimal Joshi, 11 Myrtle Street, Edison, New Jersey. We saw and there is a lot of noise about this racist flyer, politically motivated or not, we don't know that yet. Okay, there is an investigation going on. But I just want to know from board that how you can stop this kind of practice, or if any board member or any candidate who are involved in this kind of activity, what kind of precaution or what kind of action board is going to take? Jerry, I'm asking you the question.
I don't know the answer.
So basically,
I don't know
what action we can take it if the people, if any of the board member is proven guilty on these, or anything is found out, because the election is coming like next month, and we know that somebody will play the trick. How you are going to stop that? Do you have any means to stop it?
That's a lawyer's question.
I've already advised about the response to any issue concerning this.
No, I'm not talking about that flyer, sir. New flyer. That flyer is under investigation. I'm not asking. If anybody comes out with the flyer in this election, and if any candidate is involved in there, how you are going to handle that part, sir?
If you're bringing up a hypothetical question, it's hard to, how can you answer that?
No, so there is an election law. That's besides the point. But if board member get involved, and if we find out that somebody is coming out with the flyer, like in the last time people came out, because it was purely a motivated flyer, sir, okay, to create a difference and fight between the mainstream community and the minority, particularly the Asian. Jerry was there, Falguni name was there, and some of the other mainstream candidate might have lost because of that particular flyer even. You know, so we have to be little serious. I know that, I mean, you know, you trying to protect yourself, that okay, or some board member might be who is going for the re-election, they might even try for that again. So we just want to know that, I mean, you know, any of the board member there, I know that that is the, you are talking, you have asked board member not to answer on that particular flyer, but my question is different, that if anybody comes out with that kind of flyer, and if that candidate is identified and if they are on the board, are they going to resign, or are they going to do anything on that, or how you are going to take that particular issue?
Do you want me to respond? Yeah. So based upon what you said, which is a hypothetical, that if
no, it has been done before.
It has been done before, but if it were to happen again,
yeah,
and there were to be some other flyer or a racist flyer that were to come out, any information concerning that flyer and who may have sent it should be given to the appropriate authorities to investigate it and to come to a conclusion as to whether there's been any wrongdoing. Then at that point, if there's been any wrongdoing by any board member, that can be addressed by the School Ethics Commission or the appropriate authorities. That's the answer to the question.
Okay, so basically, morally or anything like board don't have a power to do anything on that, right? That's what you are trying to tell me.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comments? See none?
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second? Okay, Mr. Pressure. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.